Hey, how you guys doing? This is your boy Mario. I told you, I always have the best guests on my television program. I don't bullshit you. I'm not going to deceive you. I'm going to keep it 100% truthful. You're wondering who the gentleman is sitting right there in front of my camera. Well, he's one of the most well-known editors in the business of comics and everything. He's the one known as Jim Scalicrup. Scalicrup. That's a very exotic last name. Huh? Oh, wow. I did not know that because it doesn't sound like a Spanish last name. Okay, so please tell us a little bit about your origin story. How did you get involved with comics?
All right, this will take only a few hours. I started, I'm from the Bronx. I grew up in the projects and the Bronx River housing projects back in the 60s. And I think I first saw the old Superman TV show, and that got me started in, picking up comic books back in the days where they were 12 cents each. And I just became a super fan. I sent away for fanzines. There was no internet or anything like that, but there was comic book conventions, and I would go to those. That's where I met Mike Carbonaro, who runs the Big Apple convention, when we were like 12 or 13 years old, like over 50 years ago. So, but anyhow, through the fanzines and all that, my dream was two things. When you lived in the Bronx back then, was to live in Manhattan, and I wanted to work at Marvel Comics. So,
who hired you for your very first job? What is DC or Marvel?
well, my dream was to work for Marvel, and although when you mentioned DC, at 14 I was working for something called Kids Magazine, and one of the co-editor was Jeanette Kahn, who later went on to be the president of DC Comics. Well, I think she's wonderful, but talk about tough. She one of her movie projects a few years ago was producing a Clint Eastwood movie. But anyhow, so after I was at Kids Magazine, at 15, like Menudo, they retire you. You're out. And so I figured I'll go to high school, I'll go to art and design. But before I even started high school, I sent in a postcard to Marvel saying I'd be your slave. And they took me up on my offer, and they sort of hired me as a messenger to bring the original artwork of all the comics to the offices of the Comics Code Authority. And once I got my foot in the door at Marvel Comics, I was like a pit bull, biting Marvel's ankle. I wasn't going to let go. I was there for 20 years.
So my question is right now, I heard all sorts of horrible stories about the Comics Code Authority. Were they the bad guys that the media made them out to be?
Well, I think the problem was, it limited the type of comics where they could only do stories that were okay for children. Now most of the regular comics are read by people your age, either older teenagers, adults, and they're really, about 20 years ago, there weren't being that many more comics being produced for kids. So my partner, Terry Nantier, the publisher of NBM, had the idea of starting a graphic novel company that would do graphic novels for kids. And that's what I've been doing for the last 17 years or so, going back to kids. Even when I was at Marvel, as I just said before I was at Marvel, I worked at Kids Magazine. When I was at Marvel, one of the longest writing assignments I had was on Spidey Super Stories, which was a Spider-Man comic to help kids learn how to read. So I was always interested in comics for kids. So the Comics Code was never a problem for me. Here's a book of stuff from Marvel that I edited. It was all approved by the Comics Code, so I didn't have a problem. It's just, and everything I do now could probably be approved by the Comics Code. But it was a problem only for material that was meant for older audiences. So now it's not an issue anymore. Everyone could have comics. So I don't think the code was a problem at all.
Well, one of my big questions right now is, did you ever work on any of the Transformers franchise?
Yeah, Bill Matlow was the original writer, but I think he had an accident and and couldn't finish the stories. But he plotted the first two issues of Transformers. The first one was scripted by Ralph Macchio, and then issues 2, 3, and 4 of the limited series of Transformers was the first one, number 2, was scripted by me, and then I plotted and wrote issues 3 and 4. It was supposed to be a limited series, but it lasted for years. Yeah, Bob was my editor. He used to be my assistant editor, but when Marvel had a rule back then, even though Bob had helped develop all the Transformers characters, they didn't allow editors to write for themselves. So he had to get someone else to edit the book so that Bob could then become the writer after me. And of course, he knew those characters intimately and did a wonderful job.
Okay. Well, Jim, I just want to thank you so much for being here. I see you have some wonderful artwork on the table. I see you're selling some graphic novels for the kids. This is a beautiful thing, man. So if anybody wants to reach out to you for like something really personal, really something cool, how should they go about doing it?
I'm doing a lot of conventions, but anyone could reach me at Scalicrup at papercuts.com, and they should check out what we're doing there. We even have an imprint called Super Genius, where like a book like this, it's called Ralph Azam, was, I don't know if you can see it, there it is, and that's actually for older audiences, so that one doesn't have the Paper Cuts logo on it. It says Super Genius, but the Super Genius stuff, like this great new series called The Nightmare Brigade, is good for all ages. But yeah, so the best way to find me is I'm on Facebook and at Paper Cuts.
You heard what the man said. Contact him through Facebook or Paper Cuts, the website. Jim, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for telling us the origin of your last name, Scalicrup.
Spanish. I'm half Spanish, half Jewish, and the half that's Spanish is half Puerto Rican and half Spanish from Spain. The other half is from Poland and Hungary.
I'm multicultural too, but I'm not going to get on that on the microphone. Jim, thank you so much, man, for being here. And I hope to see you again. All right. That's a wrap, guys. And we're going to move on to the next guest. Bye-bye. Hey, how you guys doing? Guess what? I just met another special guest who showed up last minute. Right now, he's drawn something special. He's drawn a little commission, but he's doing the composition for it first because it's not ready yet to be fully drawn. But without further ado, I'm talking to the one and only
Dave Cooper.
Dave Cooper, thank you so much for being here, man. Thank you for spending time with me, my audience. Please just tell my audience members a little bit about your journey in the comics. How did you start?
Oh boy, man, I started way back in about '87. It's funny. Never thought I could do comic books. I mean, I always thought I was good enough, but I never knew if I could actually make it into a living. But what happened was, in college, I hooked up with the curator of the Museum of Cartoon Art in Port Chester, if anybody remembers that place. And he hooked me up. And because he was the curator of the museum, it was his responsibility to keep track of all the work in and out. And while I was hanging out there, I got to meet all of my heroes. I met Kirby, Byrne, Perez, Richard and Wendy Pini, Walter Simonson. Okay, I'm 15 years old, 16 years old. This is blowing my mind. Okay, so I had these big-time, all-time great comic book artists, had a chance to look at my work and critique my work, and that was really when I started to believe that I could do this professionally. And he hooked me up, and I started getting professional jobs while I was still in college. So I transferred out, I got a degree in art, and then I went into the business. I hooked up with Paris Cullins, who at the time was huge. He was doing New Gods, Blue Beetle. He looked at my stuff. He liked my stuff. He took me to D.C. offices. I got to show my stuff directly to the editors that were there. So I didn't have to deal with all of the red tape and bureaucracy. They liked my stuff, and I got a job. My first job was Gamma Marauders. It was based on a really obscure game that came out in the late 80s. I did that, and then after that, I started getting regular work. And I worked for DC for a long time. Most of my professional work is DC, but I've done work for Marvel, Dark Horse, Valiant, and several other independent companies.
So I have to ask this question: What was your hardest art assignment?
My hardest art assignment was probably Iron Hand of Almuric that I did for Dark Horse, because they didn't like the pencil style. So they said, we want you to pretty much redo the pencils while I was inking the work. So I was re-penciling and while I was inking at the same time, which was a pain in the neck, okay? But it was cool because after I'd gotten that done, Randy Stradley liked what I had done so much that he offered me the AVP job that was coming up then. But I never got a chance to do it because the day after he offered me that job, I got really sick and I had to go into the hospital.
Damn, that sucked. It would have been nice to see what you would have done with Alien versus Predator.
Yeah, that would have been great. I mean, they got Chris Warner to do it, who's awesome. Okay, awesome guy, awesome artist. So I wasn't, but it would have been great if I had gotten that. And I did a whole bunch of production and pre-production work for DC, who was Warner at the time. I did a whole bunch of stuff. It was comic related, but it wasn't comics per se. I got to do like toy boxes. When the action figures, the cardboard backs with the art.
Yeah, you got to design the cardboard boxes for the toys. Not many people get to do that.
Playing cards, all that stuff that people don't notice, right? But it's there, okay? It's funny when I walk into like...
It's there because people will notice. Either it will attract you to buy the toy or you won't. You'll be repulsed by it.
So, And the funny thing is that stuff that I did, that it wasn't as exciting as doing comic books. You didn't get the recognition that you got when you were doing comic books. It paid better, though.
That's what matters. So what are you up to these days? What are you working on besides the commission?
Right now, I reunited with a couple of old friends of mine. They were looking for artists because my boy Chris, he's got a lot of really good ideas. He's just looking for people to turn those ideas into a reality. And it's a funny thing. We totally by accident hooked up with each other on Facebook after 27 years? Okay. And we hooked up and we've been rolling with this ever since. We've been throwing ideas back and forth at each other. There are books that we want to do together. So basically it just comes down to us sitting down every week, throwing the ideas around, me taking those ideas, putting them on paper, and getting it done.
Okay. Are you guys located in New York City?
Actually, we're located in New Jersey.
That's not too bad.
No, that's not too bad at all. Not too bad at all.
Okay, all right. So you told me you wanted to showcase, give the people a little preview of your brand new character?
Yeah, we're doing. Now, this is just one of the characters that we're working on. He's called Reaver. He's basically an avatar for a god of war. Okay, and that god of war demands blood and souls in combat. The setting of the story is World War I. He's actually one of the elite black soldiers that fought during World War I. These are real guys. We're taking a real slice of history and turning it into a comic book.
Will he be using African-based weapons, or he's going to be using none but weapons from China and Korea and Japan?
We haven't decided that yet, but he's probably going to be using a whole bunch of different things because the power doesn't come from the weapons. The power comes from him. and the power comes from the amulet that he wears, which I believe is African.
So it's safe to say he's going to be trying to be using mostly African weapons.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, we're still in the developmental stage with this. The only thing we've got is look down. Okay, we got his look down, but everything else we need to hook that up. Yeah. Thanks.
Eating his Wheaties.
Yeah, that's cool. But of course, this world that we're putting him in, yes, setting is World War I, but it's got supernatural stuff. It's got vampires, werewolves, golems.
In other words, he can't tell you the rest of the story because when the book comes out, you need to buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. I'm not gonna divulge any details. Besides, Chris knows actually more about the details than me, but I'll tell you a bit about that. But it's gonna blow up. It's not gonna be like anything that's currently out there.
Yeah, because Chris isn't here right now. Chris is at the hotel resting his bones.
Yeah, he'll be here soon.
Okay.
I'll tell him what he missed too. But I'm gonna tell him what he missed because he's gonna be upset because he lives for this. Okay, because he's the promo guy. I'm not the promo guy. I'm the art guy.
Our guy got to do the promotion too.
He's the promo guy, but we'll hook him up when he gets here.
Well, thank you so much for your time, man. You heard what the man said. What's the name of your entrepreneurship?
What's Chris's website? Afrobatics.com.
That's amazing. Well, you heard what the gentleman said. Go to afrobatics.com if you want a piece of the action. Thank you so much for your time.
Posting a lot of new stuff over the next month, so stay tuned for that.
It might happen in a few days. You never know, man. They might get really lucky. Thank you so much for your time, man. And I hope to see Chris soon enough. Bye-bye. This is your boy, Maury. I'm here at Big AppleCon, March 26, 2022, on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. And you're wondering who the gentleman is standing in front of me. And you're wondering what kind of books he has behind me. Well, I'm going to tell you this much. He's going to tell us his origin story, how he got started in the business, what made him start collecting, and what motivates him to keep kicking ass and taking no prisoners. He's the one and only
Howard Chasser.
How you doing, Howard?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for spending time with me and my audience. I want to know your origin story. How did you get involved with comic books?
So I got started collecting comic books when I was a kid, probably 6, 7 years old. I got my first comic book. By the time I was 9, I was seriously collecting, going to the local comic shop and buying back issues. At a point, I amassed a collection as a young teenager of probably 600 or 700 books, and I was able to read every single one of them, which was one of my favorite parts of collecting. I love getting lost into stories, and they were really, really cool. They also really helped me a lot with school and English class. I learned incredible vocabulary and reading skills through collecting comic books.
Cool. So I see you got some sports memorabilia here, and oh wow, you got 2 amazing copies of 2 different comic books from Marvel, Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man. So tell us a little bit about these babies right here.
Okay, so first, Spider-Man I pulled out because it's representative of a much bigger collection that I have here at the show for the first time. This was an original owner collection of almost 2,000 comic books. And when you look at the condition of this, it's very representative of the condition of how well kept the comic books were. And it was a really awesome collection for me to buy because I got to talk with the owner about it quite a bit, and he loved reading the comic books as much as I did. So it just held a special place in my heart and brought me kind of back to my childhood. And he hadn't been into them for quite some time. So now there's an opportunity for more people moving forward to enjoy them. And while I got many of the better ones graded and the more expensive ones graded, the majority of the collection I'm selling raw so that people have the same ability to enjoy reading them just the way I did and the original owner did.
That's cool, man. Do you like that particular issue of Spider-Man?
What's that?
Like the issue of Spider-Man where he fights Electro?
Yes, that's the first appearance of Electro. That's one of the more desirable Spider-Man books.
Nice. And what about the Fantastic Four, Hulk versus the Thing?
Fantastic Four goes back to my childhood collecting days. This was my favorite issue, still is one of my favorite issues ever. And I remember when I was looking for it as a kid, I had a really hard time finding this. My comic shop didn't have it. I went to a couple of different conventions looking for it, couldn't find it, and eventually did. And where I normally collected one of each issue, this particular issue I loved so much, I actually ended up, I think, with about 4 or 5 of them over a period of years. A couple of them that I still have. And this is one from my childhood collection from back in the 1980s.
Okay, sweet, sweet. So, if anybody wants to purchase any goods from you, how should they go about doing it?
Best thing is to either call me at 516-991-5535 or email me at hcv123@att.net. You can also find me on eBay, although a lot of this inventory is not there. On eBay, my username is favorite_things.
Nice, 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 nice. Well, Howard, thank you so much for your time, man. I wish you success on your more success in your entrepreneurship. And you have any special messages for the fans out there?
Just enjoy what you collect. Make that first and foremost, because when you enjoy what you collect, everything else is just gravy.
Sweet, sweet. Thank you so much again, Howard, for your time. You heard what the man said, guys. You want to buy collectibles from him? Good collectibles? Talk to him. He's the man for the job. That's a wrap, guys, and until next time, bye-bye. Hey, how you guys doing? I have a very special guest sit in front of my camera. You're wondering who the gentleman is. You may not recognize his face, but you sure as hell will recognize his work. His name is Arthur Suydam, right? And he has a very particular skill. He's very good at drawing zombies. He zombifies everything. But not only that, he's also good at drawing humans too, which is really shocking because his zombie stuff is amazing, truly amazing. But without further ado, I'm here with the one and only Arthur Suydam. How you doing, man?
How are you, man? It's good to see you. Good to see you. I don't usually do New York shows these days, even though I live in New York. But I do a lot of shows. I do them everywhere else. But so it's good to be back in New York doing the New York show.
So, Arthur, I want to know what's your origin story with comic books? Tell us how you got started.
Well, I got started. I was burned very bad when I was small. I was about 5 years old, and the doctors, nobody thought I was going to live. So I spent a year in the hospital, wrapped up like a mummy from head to toe. I was burnt all over except my face and my goodies. And my parents started bringing me comic books, and I just fell in love with the comics. And as soon as I got out of the hospital, a year later when I was 6 years old, I had a little spot that wasn't burned where there were no bandages on my hand, and I started drawing. First I started drawing dinosaurs because the comics I really liked the best at the time were Star Spangled War stories from DC. It was like army stories with dinosaurs in it. And then later on started drawing the superheroes, and then later on I started to get some really good training. I had an uncle who reportedly studied with Norman Rockwell, and I inherited his workbooks when I was about 8 years old. My aunt gave me his workbooks. So that's my first really official training. And I got hired right when I was in high school by DC Comics. I got hired by Warren Publishing. And basically anybody I went to see, they kind of hired me. Hey, come around. Get a chair. There's a chair. Yeah, go ahead.
That's just really good, man. I'm glad that you recovered from your childhood injury, and that I'm glad that you recovered from your childhood situation, and now that you're all better, what inspired you to do all these zombified superheroes?
Well, I'm classically trained, so as I said, Marvel, DC. Well, DC hired me right away when I was in high school.
Explain what you mean by classically trained.
Oh, yeah, I will. Warren hired me as well. So they hired me. So they wanted to give me everything. They were throwing everything at me. Marvel threw me. They wanted me to do Spider-Man, Avengers, Fantastic Four, everything. DC offered me Swamp Thing, and they were throwing everything at me. But I hadn't really got the training that I really wanted to get. So I was looking for 16th century Renaissance training, and there were no schools. There were no schools in the United States teaching that format, that curriculum. So I just kept working for the comic companies, and I was touring as a professional musician as well, touring over the country, and then about 4 years later, based on the notes of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Raphael, they opened up a school. They recreated the school. It's the first classical atelier in the United States, called the New York Academy of Figurative Art, and so I started studying there, and the basis for the curriculum was 99% anatomy. So it's kind of like medical school. So we had to do a lot of work with cadavers. So we would go to Hunter University and work with cadavers during the night. During the day, the medical students had them. During the evening, the artists had access to them. So we would take the bodies apart, put the bodies back together again. We drew them, we sculpted them, we painted them, and so when it came down for this zombie thing, basically I kind of became, after Marvel Zombies came out, it was such a big hit. Marvel Zombies, Raise the Dead for Dynamite Entertainment, and Army of Darkness first Marvel Zombies, which was a Dynamite Marvel crossover. Those three series actually started the whole zombie craze. I'm told that that's actually what got the Walking Dead's TV sign when they were having difficulty getting it signed. It was really the popularity prompted by Marvel Zombies and those other two series. So that's my training.
Wow, that's deep, man. That's deep. So what was your hardest art assignment ever?
Hardest what?
The hardest art assignment.
Marvel Zombies was. What was the hardest about it was that the book kept selling out. It sold out. I think the first book sold out in 1 or 2 days. The second one sold out. They kept selling out in like 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. And what was selling the series were the covers. So people were buying the books just to get the covers, and they weren't even reading the books. And so Marvel would come back to me and say, we need a new cover. I would do a new cover for them, and I have to stay up all night long, not getting any sleep. And that would sell out. And then they'd say, we need another cover from you. We need it ASAP, tomorrow, the next day. So for basically about 4 years, I didn't get any sleep, really. So I'd say that was the hardest project I ever had, mostly due to the time demand on turning into covers. It takes me 2 weeks to 3 weeks to do a cover, and I just didn't get sleep for like 4 years.
Well, you're one of the hottest artists in the industry, so you paid the cost to be the top boss.
That's cool. That's cool. I mean, I think that it's nice to be appreciated. It's nice that the fans like the work. That's what we do it for. We don't do it for the money because the money sucks. So we do it because we love to do artwork.
That's why I'm here too.
Fans. To tell you the truth, we do love the fans. The fans are great.
Are you working on any creator-owned projects?
Creator-owned? Yes, as a matter of fact, I am. Let me think about that. Creator-owned. Let me think what I'm working on now. I'm working on a Conan graphic novel project, miniseries or graphic novel.
Your own baby, like.
I'm trying to think what I'm working on my own. I'm working on the Wind in the Willows book. I'm working on 3 tabletop art books. So for myself, that's really what I'm working on right now.
Okay. So, out of all the zombie stuff, which one is your favorite cover?
Baby.
Nirvana, baby. Okay, all right, got you.
Nice. Yeah. I also did a cover for. I have a buddy who has a Christian band called 39 Stripes out of Florida, and I did his CD album cover. That's one of my favorite paintings ever that I've done. For
the medium that you work in, do you work exclusively digitally or oil or acrylic?
I started off as a mixed media, so I was mixing all the paints together. Then I went to oils, and then I went to gouache painting. Now I go back and forth between gouache painting. I still do mixed media. It's usually gouache mixed with something else. I'll do my underpaintings, I'll paint them digitally, and then I'll paint my finished painting with gouache usually.
Okay, I respect that hustle. I mean, I work strictly in watercolor only, not gouache. I have gouache at home, but I don't like to use it. I prefer the watercolor because it's transparent, but also magical. It makes it. I have a great time using watercolor because it's magical to me.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah. I like that it dries fast. That's what I like about it. I used to have a hair dryer in one hand and a paintbrush in the other hand.
Same here, man.
Bottle to spray the paints to keep them from drying out.
Same here, man. I have all that at home. Arthur, I have to say this. Thank you so much for being here, man. Thank you so much for spending time with me and my audience. And I finally got to meet the man behind the zombie craze. Dude, keep kicking ass and taking no prisoners.
We're trying, man. We're trying. Take care.
You're not trying, you're doing it.
As long as the eyesight holds up. As long as the eyesight holds up, we're all right.
You heard what he said. As long as his eyesight holds up, we're good to go. And until next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Appreciate it. What's up?
How's your day going so far here at the show?
Actually, it's really good. It was really good. We got some, I guess you call it augmented reality experiences going on right now. We're planning our show, our Urban Action Showcase and Expo this November. Right now, it's probably going to be November 4th or 5th, but go to our social media, Urban Action Showcase or urbanactionshowcase.com for the confirmation. But we're back in Times Square after 2 years in the metaverse because of COVID. But, you know, we still kept it going in the metaverse. But because of that, we're actually going to be in the metaverse still. So we're going to be in obviously in person. And then we're going to have at least another 3 days in the metaverse.
So, my audience members may not know a little bit about you. I did cover your show, but please tell us the origin of Urban Action Showcase. When did you start brainstorming the idea, and how long did it take for it to come to fruition?
You could say I started brainstorming back in 2009. Because we used to, partner and I used to do action films that focused on diversity and breaking stereotypes in the action genre. So from that, I started doing Comic-Con. So in '09, I started doing Comic-Con. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be a way to merge a film festival with this type of event. So I started brainstorming. At that time, I was working at HBO, and I saw all the festivals that they were doing. And I started back at HBO back in 1999. And I said, you know what? I'm going to create something that merges these two worlds. So in 2013, we finally launched our first event. And the purpose behind it is to make sure that we have heroic images that reflect our interest and our image in the blockbuster action genre, because we need heroes that look like us and reflect every facet of our existence. So we decided, okay, the best way to do that is to be a solution to the problem. So if I'm thinking there's not enough content or heroic content out there with people of color, why don't I create a platform that invites this content and then therefore gives distribution. So we went from distribution on Cinemax to Amazon to our own OTT channels to now where we actually have hundreds of millions of dollars in funding to create projects. So, you know, we've you know, in 10 years we've made some progress and trying to make a difference when it comes to content of action or anything that's action, adventure, fantasy, sci-fi, supernatural, anything that has a hero that needs a hero, we make sure that we have representation.
So I have another question for you. Since you're about diversity and representation, what are you trying to do for the independent black comic book creators that are out there? Like, for example, Andre Botts, there's Ray Felix. Andre Botts has a wonderful book called Dreadlocks. What else? Then there's Black Power. There's a lot of independent black heroes out there that are being sold in the small market, but a lot of them are not getting the exposure that they need. What do you plan to do for them?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Most of those people were at my first Urban Action Showcase. And I honored the creators, content creators, for these types of IPs. And what we basically do is we have funds, right, in case they want to make those IPs actual live action. So we partner the filmmakers with the comic book creators to create live action and to get funding. So that's what we're doing in that sense. In the publishing sense, we don't have any connections yet on the publishing end, but right now we have it at least where if you want to make it live action, because don't forget all the Marvel, all the DC, all that started as, publications.
I only support the independent heroes, man.
Okay.
You're an independent guy yourself.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, where did all those come from? Where did all those films come from? It came from comics, right? So we have panels, like from script to screen. We have, like I said, we have various workshops that people can network. And that's really what it's about, networking and being able to collaborate. But for now, everything is about film. So we're taking those IPs and helping them create live action content.
I have another question. Do you plan on creating your own combo character in the future?
Not my own personal comic book character, but I've actually produced some comic books over the years, independent, obviously, and help people in that sense.
Because here's the funny thing. You look like my homeboys on combo character. It's a fantasy story, and the lead character, he's your build, but he's a little bit darker complexion, and obviously the gentleman has a beard. And, I figure you can play his character for him if he's up for it. I mean, I'm going to send him the video footage, and if he likes you, then he's going to reach out to you, okay?
Okay, I don't know how much of an actor I am, but I'm definitely a SAG after stunt performer. So, if you need somebody to do some action, I could do that. My acting, I'm kind of, stoic kind of dude, so I don't have that much range. So you're probably going to have to get somebody else to do the acting.
I have a very good feeling you're working on that range. I'm pretty confident. I can bet money on it, and I will win. But definitely, I'm going to let him know. Well, Demetrius, thank you so much for being here, man. Thank you for being one of the enduring forces within this industry. Are you working on any movies right now for yourself, or right now you just focus on making sure your baby Urban Act Showcase is being promoted?
Right now, I'm not doing any personal projects, but we're definitely working on a great show for this year. We've already got 2 of the 5 Deadly Venoms confirmed. We've got pretty much all the dragons: Cynthia Rothrock, Lady Dragon; Tomac the Last Dragon; Ron Van Cleef the Black Dragon. We've got Don the Dragon Wilson. Some of the old school kung fu artists. We've got Carl Scott. We're working on some other connections, some more superheroes. So we're trying to make it a really, really, really special 10th anniversary.
Will you be able to get Gordon Liu in?
No, unfortunately, Gordon Liu is not well. So it's very difficult to be able to move him from China and to bring, with his health the way it is.
All right. What about Hiroyuki Henry Sanada?
Right now, we're just, because it's international and we're just getting out of COVID, we're just focusing on one thing at a time. And right now, it's just a few of the Venoms from 5 Deadly Venoms, because they're like a staple when it comes to Kung Fu cinema.
Okay, I'm trying not to get too greedy now, I mean, I do enjoy your show, because the first time I went to it, it felt like a family reunion. I had a good time. No one got drunk. Everyone was just so peaceful, loving, and cooperative. It was, everyone won that everyone wins when they go to Urban Action Showcase.
I'm glad you say it because we try to say it's like a family reunion with all the family members that you like, because because the atmosphere is definitely all about honor, all about respect, all about love, and all about having a good time and fellowship.
So, guys, remember, anytime Demetrius has his show, Urban Action Showcase, you should be there. It's a must-see event. Not must-see, must-attend event. You must be there. You must show up because what you see online is not going to do you any justice. Unfortunately, that's just the truth of it. It's best for you to be there in person. At least then you can say you experienced it firsthand. Because you don't want to do the virtual experience all the time. It's like the saying goes, I'd rather eat real fruit and vegetables than fake fruit and vegetables. So make sure you take time on your schedule to be at Urban Action Showcase, November 2nd and 3rd, right?
4th and 5th.
November 4th and 5th, 2022. What's the venue again?
AMC Theaters, Times Square so far.
Amen to that. Well, Demetrius, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a beacon of inspiration and hope. Keep kicking ass and taking no prisoners.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Until next time, bye-bye.